I found myself on multiple occasions sort of straying away from using my Copic markers simply because of the fact that they bleed onto the next page, and just not a huge fan of the bleeding, but this has been recommended to me a bunch of times. It's a Rendr sketchbook, and if you don't know, its main selling point for a lot of people is that you can use alcohol markers with it and it doesn't bleed onto the next page. So I really wanted to try it myself. I've heard lots of good things. It's been recommended to me multiple times, but personally, I'm the kind of person who likes having one mixed media sketchbook, and while this is a mixed media sketchbook, in my eyes it's kind of just like an alcohol marker sketchbook, but I decided to get one. As you can see, I already did a first illustration in this sketchbook, and it did not bleed at all onto the next page, which is something that's so nice to see with alcohol markers, because every single other sketchbook I have owned, it has bled onto, at the very least, the next side of the sheet, if not the next sheet entirely. So it's really, really nice having a sketchbook, because like I said, in the past, I genuinely have avoided using my alcohol markers just because of the fact that it'll bleed onto the back of the page, it'll bleed onto the next sheet in some situations, which that in of itself, it bleeding onto the next sheet is not a huge deal for me, because whenever I use alcohol markers, I always make sure to have a piece of scrap paper behind the page I'm working on, that way it doesn't bleed onto different sheets. But I don't know, I'm a person who, when it comes to my sketchbooks, I really like having them full and so much going on each individual page, and I like to just have them very visually eye-catching. And when it comes to using markers, I feel like I'm wasting space, or I'm wasting real estate on a page, because it bleeds over to the next page and then I can't really draw something super nice on top of it. I tend to use those for thumbnailing or just simple doodling, but can't do anything not necessarily a full polished piece, because it's a sketchbook, it's not intended for full polished pieces, but I hope you understand what I'm saying with that. So as a whole, I really like using Copic markers, but I find myself not using them nearly as much as I want to, and especially recently, I've really, really wanted to use my markers again, but I just didn't have any kind of paper that was really good for them, so I decided to pick up a Rendr sketchbook. The fact that it doesn't bleed onto the next page, it's so nice. It makes me feel really comfortable and at ease using my markers. Also, the size I ended up getting, I really, really enjoy working with. It's a hardbound one. I know they have some spiral bounds, and they have a couple different sizes between the two. I don't remember what this size specifically is. I think it might be a 5x7 or something, but it's small without being too small, and that's the perfect size for me when working with markers, because when I use my markers, I don't like to do necessarily large illustrations, because I feel Copic marker ink is very expensive, so I feel I'm not really wasting it necessarily, but I feel I'm using a lot of ink. I'm very conscious about how much ink I use when I'm doing marker drawings, so having it be this size is really nice. I feel in some instances I would like it to be bigger paper, but at that point, if I want to do anything different other than simple sketchbook work, I can simply get marker paper or loose sheet of paper or something like that and do it on. But I'm really happy with this sketchbook. I'm really happy with the size of it, how it works, how it handles markers. The only thing that's strange, I guess, about this paper is that I feel it has a really weird drying shift when it comes to alcohol markers, especially noticed with lighter colors. When I lay down the color, I know there's always a different look of the ink before it dries, but I feel it looks very almost purple with skin tones and stuff. When I was doing my Zuko piece, I felt there was such a strange drying shift where when I initially laid down the color, it looked so different versus the actual dried ink. But that's not necessarily a bad thing by any means, and a lot of papers have that. I just feel it's really intense with the Rendr sketchbook. It might just be all on me because I haven't really used my alcohol markers a whole lot lately, but I just felt there was a really intense drying shift. But that's not a bad thing. It doesn't impact the final piece at all. It's just it's a weird thing I noticed, and that's honestly my only complaint about this sketchbook. And the Rendr sketchbooks as a whole, they're not solely intended to be used with markers. They're technically a mixed media sketchbook, so you can use colored pencils, alcohol markers, obviously, a bunch of other different mediums on them. It says on the little sheet on the front, but it's intended to be used as a mixed media sketchbook. I personally am going to use this as probably solely alcohol marker art on the inside. I mentioned earlier that I normally try and keep myself to using one sketchbook at a time, but I've completely abandoned that mentality, and I currently have 3 or 4 sketchbooks that I'm working on. Yeah, I think I have 4 sketchbooks that I'm currently working on, which I have not done in a really, really long time. It's been like several years since I've decided to punish myself by having a bunch of sketchbooks, but in that sense it's nice at the same time because if I feel like using smaller paper, I have a sketchbook with smaller paper. If I feel like working large, I have a larger sketchbook, or watercolor specific pieces, Copic art specific pieces. I always have those sketchbooks now that are dedicated, not necessarily dedicated, but a place where the paper is more in my favor, and that's really nice because it's nice to be able to be like, this is what I want to work on. I'll be able to work in a sketchbook that kind of benefits me in that sense, versus when I've worked out of sketchbooks before, like my ELO sketchbook. If I wanted to work big, it was only an 8x8, so that's all I pretty much had to work with. Or my last sketchbook, the Arteza watercolor sketchbook, if I wanted to use Copics, I wouldn't use Copics because it's watercolor paper. And if I wanted to do small art, it would just be a tiny portion of the page because it was a really physically large sketchbook, so it had a lot of surface area. And at times, especially like if I haven't drawn in a few days, a very large paper, a very large sketchbook can be kind of intimidating, and it's not always what I want to go for because I feel more like I need to do like full bodies to fill up the page and just like, I don't know, weird like things that come along with working out of one sketchbook at a time. So I don't know how long it's going to take me to finish any of the sketchbooks I'm working on. I also haven't drawn hardly anything lately. I have been going like week at a time without doing any art at all because it's like I get home from work and then I play Animal Crossing, and on my days off I'm doing like chores and stuff and playing Animal Crossing. So it's just been a very weird balance of balancing what I do in my free time and then the time that I don't have because it's spent at work or doing other stuff. But I haven't been doing a whole lot of art lately, but something that I wanted to draw was Animal Crossing characters. So that's what I ended up doing. So from left to right, the characters are Kat, Nan, and Anka. They're some of my villagers that I have in my town. They're like 3 of my favorite villagers, although I love all of my villagers that I currently have, but I really wanted to draw them because I like their designs and they're super, super cute, so I thought that would be a fun thing to do with my markers because, like I said, really been wanting to use my markers more lately. But if you guys have been playing New Horizons, let me know in the comments below how you like it. Obviously, I've been playing it a lot. I love it to pieces. It's so much fun. Oh, I've dedicated so much time into New Horizons. But let me know in the comments below if you play New Horizons, how you like it, who your favorite villagers are, etc. Because it is a super, super fun game. If you haven't played it, I would highly, highly recommend it. I know Switches are sold out pretty much anywhere right now, so if you don't have a Switch, I'm so, so sorry. But that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one.